Hello there, Stephanie. Welcome to our podcast. I'm super keen to dig into your fascinating journey.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be here with you.
So, for our listeners, Stephanie is a veteran. She's a pro. She's been around in higher education marketing and she specializes in driving digital marketing and experience strategies to boost recruitment, retention, and institutional brand visibility. Doing our research, it says you've worked with hundreds of colleges and universities in North America and abroad. Is that true?
That is true. It's the best I can do at this moment is more than 600, probably less than 1,000.
Oh my goodness. Don't worry, there's time left to hit that 1K mark. So I don't think I'm exaggerating when I say this is going to be a great conversation. So here we go. So, Stephanie, let's start with a really easy walk into the park. So, just tell us what you're doing right now. And more importantly, tell us who you are.
Wow, thanks. I'm an American. I'm from Pennsylvania, from the East Coast, but I've been living west of the Mississippi in Colorado since 1997. My husband and I moved over here. We were just married for 3 years at that point, didn't have kids, and said, let's just go over there and see what we think. And here we are in this home for 24 years and have raised 3 kids. Our youngest is in college back east. Our middle daughter is probably heading to another school to resume in person studies next semester. And our oldest is teaching fifth grade and in graduate school. Plus, my husband works in the school district with middle school with special ed kids. We're all education all the time. It seems.
That is amazing. I didn't realize how close all of you are in terms of the educational right now. You're like an insider. So, are you giving advice to your daughter on what to expect at university and what she shouldn't stand for?
She likes to counsel me on some of my marketing strategies. The youngest,
She's getting some real work practice. I would say pay attention, right? That's a great segue, though. Clearly, you're a mother bear. How would your friends and family describe you? Is it different from what they see at work?
I think so. Yeah, I think that my work colleagues might think that I'm more chill and laid back than my family does. My family knows that if I need to go to school in my yoga pants with my hair pulled back in a ponytail to set something straight, that it's going to get done and then we're going to move on to the next exciting challenge. And my work colleagues don't see that too much and more like a duck paddling along so serenely until I'm not.
I don't know which one I am actually. I think sometimes like we're in the marketing leadership space, so we almost have to seem like the duck sometimes, but
Mhm.
really the feet are moving at 1,000 miles an hour. Um,
Yeah, you've got to be present
how
where you are and then thinking about what's happening 5 minutes from now and how do I attack it in the right direction
yeah,
with the right velocity.
and I think the kids get to see the real you, right?
They do.
Oh, keeps us humble. Um,
It does. Oh, yes.
so we bring lots of guests here who end up inspiring other people when they listen into the podcast and hear what's going on. So I'm really curious about who inspires you.
I take a lot of inspiration from folks that are curious and ask more questions than make more pronouncements, starting with, oh, say more, tell me more about that. I love words. I love people who know the right word for the occasion. I think that can be really catalyzing for people that work in communications if we can come up with the right word. I love artists. I come from a family of artists. I love the ways in which we express our brand for our institution. I also love to make fun of all of the ridiculousness that there is in higher ed marketing and brands.
What's the style that universities and higher education institutions should actually take in terms of away from the flowery language of fluff. What should they say now, do you think?
There are plenty of institutions that get to have very little on the way of positioning because they're thinking about the Ivies and sort of the near Ivies, that just their name evokes so much in history. My grandfather went to MIT. And so if I were to evoke MIT, you would understand engineering, super smart, man, probably, I don't know, located in New England. That's a different kind of vibe. I think there shouldn't ever be a one size fits all. We just went through a rebranding process just a few years ago, and we're still developing on that new brand. And I love where we landed because it isn't like anybody else. It isn't like the near institution, the land grant school. Well, we're the flagship school. We own who we are. I love in our brand positioning, we talk about Grizzlies being both playful and formidable. And I
I
think
love
that
that.
they are unexpected and beautifully accurate words to describe who we are at that institution. And it's fresh and it's real and it evokes a sense of place that we don't think of the grizzly just as our athletic mascot, but a representation of what we do for the state of Montana and beyond.
I love that. I can actually visualize that. Like to your point, it seems anchored in something that's truly about where you are at and the place to that point. So I love that.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so let's jump a little bit into your career, right? So this is a one thing that our listeners love to hear about. So the kind of things that kind of inspire you, being great conversationalists, artistry, expression, that naturally flows into your professional life. So you've taken an unconventional path to becoming a marketing leader at the University of Montana. It seems like a chemistry potion of sorts, right? In relationships, impressions you've made, personal brand that you've created. Can you talk a little bit about what that path was like for you? How did you get from young college graduate all the way to where you are now?
Yes, I'd love to. I'm humbled by and at the same time proud of the path. And it took some twists and turns along the way. I went to a small regional state, formerly teachers college in Pennsylvania, Bloomsburg University. Go Huskies. Woof, woof. And I put myself through school. I came from a family that just didn't have the means. I was not first generation. Both of my parents went to college. My father had an MDiv. He was a Methodist pastor. And so they had talked lovingly about their college experiences, and that's where my parents met. And so I had this great visualization of what college might be like and went, and it was all that and then some. I had great internship experience the summer before my senior year. I got to live at the beach in Ocean City, New Jersey with something like 16 other co-eds in a beach house that was shortly condemned after we finished up.
I was gonna say it sounds beautiful until you said the last words.
Yes, it was delightful and filthy and 2 blocks from the beach. When you're 20, 21, who cares? You can deal with anything, and so that put me in South Jersey working as an associate producer for a TV news show, NBC affiliate. So still when I hear, like, the NBC music for their news program, I have a little visceral reaction. My job was to produce the 11 o'clock show, and I used a manual typewriter.
I
My
love the
first
sound of manual typewriters, by the way. Anyone who hasn't heard it, it's an amazing sound.
It's an amazing sound, and they are amazing machines to work on. Yeah, there's nothing like it, and I think you can tell somebody who types with purpose that they probably started,
Yeah.
at the very least, on an IBM Selectric, like, mid to late '80s. You really had to work at it, so it's hard to unlearn that in your keyboarding.
I think that's I have really fond memories. I used to be a writer as well, so I get that. And then after that, did you go into what did you do after the TV production?
The first summer after college, I'm working the TV at the TV station job and going in the afternoon, producing the 11, getting out around 11:30 or 12, carrying on with my idiot friends, and that was great. And then my car blew up, and my student loans came due in the same week. And so I had to take a second job, and I took that job at the Sands Hotel and Casino in Atlantic City.
What did your dad think about that?
A really good question. So we came to terms when he understood that I was the PR girl for the Sands. Now, I started out as the secretary, and then through attrition and just being in the right moment, right place, I became the publicist. And so my work was primarily promoting the music acts and performance artists that came into the Copa room, hilarious.
That would have been
And
fun.
I was hawking early celebrities like Jay Leno and Jerry Seinfeld, and then some golden oldies like Frankie Valli and Mel Torme.
Wow.
Okay, when I heard that Mel Torme was coming to the Piper Room, I called my dad. I'm Daddy, who's Mel Torme? And he said, "Oh, that's the Velvet Fog." That was his nickname, the Velvet Fog. And I thought, "Oh, I can use that." And so I went to my IBM Selectric and I typed out a press release. Velvet Fog plays the Sam's Copa Room from blah to blah. And I made 500 printed copies of that press release. And my intern and I stuffed them all into envelopes and mailed them in
It's
late.
coming back. Direct mail's coming back.
There it is. 500 press releases out to the Eastern Seaboard indicating that the Velvet Frog was coming
Oh.
to play the Sands.
Oh, that's a mistake that you'll probably never do again. Check your spelling.
There was no spell check. There was no, and
Oh, thank goodness.
spell check would not have addressed this. The VP for the entertainment operation was not happy with me. I remarkably was able to keep my job, but I had to
Wow.
escort Mr. Tourme to an interview that I'd set up. And so I met him. And of course, I had to begin my introduction with my deepest apologies. I said, "I'm the one who called you the Velvet Frog, and I'm very sorry." And he said, he was so sweet. He said, "Oh, my dear," he said, "I've always hated that nickname. I think you got it right."
Oh, bless. That's a good man right there. That's a
So it
good
was a
man.
good man. And he, I think, was an early embodiment of what it means to be gracious to people and to be forgiving and kind and to say, okay, the world isn't
Look,
burning down.
you still remember it how many years later,
Mhm,
right?
mhm.
It makes a difference. I mean,
Many years.
mm,
Yes.
so that's a great segue, right? Like around understanding in tough moments how you react, how other people react to your situation can make or break a situation. So, like nearly all our other guests, which is amazing, like at this point, at some point in your career, the role you held was made redundant.
Mhm,
And unfortunately, today it's probably even more prevalent than it ever has been. It happens a lot every day now, and it's rough when it happens to you. How did you cope with that situation, and how did you get out of that?
I don't think there's getting out. There's just moving on
That's
from
true.
and taking from it what gifts has been given, with probably a few exceptions. Most experience are stepping blocks. And this certainly was for me too. I had been with a consulting firm for about 23 and a half years. I started and helped build their digital marketing business, crafted a wonderful team of people who were like partners to me out on the road, working on college campuses, just doing some really interesting, innovative stuff. Our partners were helpful to us in being the first consulting firm that lifted up personalization back in the year 2000. It was a very different kind of personalization, very different for functionality, but we've been talking about it way back at the turn of the century. When I was informed that I was being laid off, I was fortunate enough to have a nice severance package, a nice parachute, and about a month in transition. And all of this happened right before March 13th, which in the States is when it all shut down. And so I had that time to start processing with friends, close friends, and family. And I began to get the idea that I should continue to talk with people, that it was cathartic and that it wasn't about me saying, oh, woe is me, but saying, what do you see? What do you think? What do you know about what's happening in the marketplace? And so I found that, like many of my colleagues who were in the same situation, we thought about starting our own consulting business. And we thought about actually maybe having a podcast because we had some things to say. Yeah.
Sure you do.
Yes. And so it was hard, but it was delightful. I talked to 43 people in 30 days. And um, I'd say probably with a few exceptions, but very few, the people that I chose to speak with who agreed to speak with me met me and said almost always, as you've intimated, I've been in your shoes. It's going to be okay. In fact, it's going to be even better. And they were 150% right. They were. I'm so grateful for the time that I had with that company. And I'm so grateful for everything that has happened since. Even the moments when I had a day or two or a week or a month where I'm like, oh, now what? Now, do I need to get an LLC? I did. Do I need to start my own website? I did. It was horrible. It was horrible. Do I need to start a podcast? I thought a lot about it, but I didn't do it. And then the phone started ringing. And the funny thing is that the people who called me were all people that I'd had really great partnerships with previously. And just as one opportunity was wrapping up, I'd get another call. And always the person on the other end would say, hey, what are you doing? What are you doing right now? And then I need you to do this thing. And can it be Monday? And maybe it was Tuesday that week. Or can it be next Monday? And can you get started? And can it be this? And I had the ability to say yes to stuff that maybe if it had come to me while I was working full time, I'd be like, I don't know what that is. I was in a place to say yes. And so I felt a lot of freedom most times, having three kids, getting into college, graduating high school, moving on was tough, but I have a great husband who puts up with my shenanigans.
Is that how you ended up at University of Montana in the end?
No, not in the end. My buddy Lance Merker called me and said, hey, what are you doing? I need a CMO. We've got a board meeting in 12 days. Can you do it? And I said, well, I don't know why not. Sure. And that was 10 months. And the day that I wrapped up that opportunity, which was delightful, the next day was April Fool's. And Jenny Petty, a woman that I had met many years before and had developed a friendship, a mentoring relationship, and she was my client when she was at the University of Wyoming. She called me with the VP for enrollment on the phone, whom I'd never met before, and said, what are you doing? I said, I just wrapped up at Modern Campus and now it's time to really get that LLC going. And I think I'm going to start a podcast. And she said, that sounds great, but I need you in Montana like now. Can you come? And I agreed to go and see what was going on in Missoula. I'd been in Montana for a number of other client engagements, other institutions, but never the university yet. And I fell in love. Initially, I said, oh, I'll give you, let's say 6 months. And it's been 3.5 years. And it's amazing. I'm so happy to be part of a campus all the time now, not just gliding across hundreds of campuses as I did for many years. And what an amazing experience. What a gift to be able to see every kind of institution there is, big, small, religious, state institutions, just public, private, all the kinds. There are so many, but it was always just, I got really good at getting in, getting the lay of the land, understanding very quickly the people, how they operated together, what I needed to accomplish on their behalf, and how we could work together to do that. And that helped me in my early days with Montana. But I realized quickly I had to go deeper and I had to learn a lot more. And I had to be really humble about that because even though no one else around me could say that they'd done the things that I'd done, I really didn't know enough of anything about that particular institution.
And I've personally been through this early in my career. I went through a redundancy as well. And it hits you like you almost go into yourself and go through that crazy ride of emotions, but you actually went the other way. You actually went, okay, let me talk to all these people in 30 days and and a lot of them, to your point, gave you insight into yourself that you probably didn't see or couldn't see at the time through the
Mhm.
fog of that anger or the emotion. So I think that's a really good kind of insight for those who are going through that right now or may go through that in the future, and look where you've ended up. To your point, it's 100% more than what you could have imagined. So now that you're here, now that you're in this role as a marketing leader, you've clearly either probably in your past among the 600 type colleges or higher education institutions that you've helped or at Montana, you've been through a lot of kind of big, brave, exciting digital transformations, and they can be as big as the change involved in the organization or the tech implementation, either or. Can you share with us an example of a recent one or an example of that kind of challenge and how you and your team actually made your way through that?
I learned that we had a secondary domain, which in higher ed is unheard of. So bear with me, but the university was using umt.edu. MT is the state abbreviation for Montana. And that was okay, but we own U Montana, and that's better to my mind. But I wasn't around when these choices were made. I was just learning about this. And the challenge was that the UMT website was, for an institution of our size and type, really big and cumbersome and not particularly engaging and not without a lot of focus on prospective student marketing. And enrollment is our primary objective for our sector. It has to be. And I looked at that website, and having done this kind of work for many years, I knew what it was going to take to turn that Titanic of a ship around. And so I thought about what I had learned about website personalization in the early days and the more contemporary versions of what was in the marketplace. And I said, can marketing have you, Montana? Can that just be ours? And can we use a CMS, a tool set, a resource that would let us do something really special and really big and really fast? And the answer was yes. And so we set up U Montana. We have contextual personalization in place now. We'll be working on behavioral and more contextual as we strengthen our CRM, which is part of the fuel for that. And we then were able to pivot our attention once we got that launched February 8th of 2023.
A day that
Wow.
will live in infamy.
Yes, it's on my calendar. We had a really nice party last February to celebrate.
Nice.
It's been a really great year. It's been a fantastic release valve as we were setting up a new brand, and we needed a really shiny place that would inspire people and that they wouldn't get confused by old brand and new brand. So we just put all of our new branding effort into that resource. And that gave us a grace period so that we could then pivot and make our work plan to attack and reset the UMT site, which we just launched on July 9th of this year.
Congratulations.
Another anniversary date on my calendar. And one of the things that is ongoing that I'm so happy that we have is two products from Squiz. So we started with the program finder and we got that launched on the U Montana site because we know prospective students care about, do you have my major? Can I afford to attend? Where is this place? Can I get in? And will I fit? And so, with those five questions in mind, we developed the U Montana site experience. We developed the content strategy, the personalization strategy, but I needed a better mechanism to get people to our academic product or programs much more easily. And I also needed to know that what I was pushing them to was accurate. An institution of our size, programs do come and go. We have a lot, like 170 maybe undergrad programs. It's a lot.
That's a lot of
So you need it to be organized and you need people to say, I'm interested in a grad program, or I'm interested in maybe an online program, or I'd really like to be on the mountain campus. So the program finder was a really big boost for us in launching that product and was so delighted when we were able to implement it kind of side by side on the UMT site, even before Restyle. Once we got into Restyle, we realized the breadth and depth of content. We have a whole category of content that is very different. If you aren't a Research One institution, you don't even know. There's so much that needs to be in that category. And so for that reason, for our strength in supporting military, we knew that we needed a really facile search tool. And so we went to our partners at Squiz and did custom search and just launched that with the UMT Restyle. And so now we're working on best bets, we're working on curators, we're working on understanding more about all of the different folks that need search to work really well. And it's a process for sure. You can't just launch it and think it's going to be perfect. Like everything these days, it needs to learn and grow, and we needed to make some adjustments. But it's a relief to know that we have tools that our users can access, whether they are prospective students or current students. And so making sure that they can find their way, talk with their advisor, say, hey, I was looking at climate studies, or tell me more about the Honors College, those kinds of things. Really important. And I sometimes wish that if I knew I was going to get into web development work, digital marketing, digital strategy, then I might have chosen to pursue a career in library science because it's taxonomy, it's
it is,
organization
isn't it?
structure. Yeah. And so I'm grateful to know some sharing, giving the librarians who sometimes let me say, how would you swing at this? So structure, organization, naming of things is really essential. And that's been a part of what my team has been working on too, making sure that we're calling things by the right name. In
Mhm.
Montana, we have a lot of first generation families. We have a lot of Native American families coming to education in this way. And they are so essential to who we are. Our mission is inclusive prosperity. And so we can't get to, as my mom would say, big for our britches. And the words that we use are so important to reaching our students. And if we take them to a website and they don't understand the words or they don't see themselves, or we aren't saying, hey, we see you and we know
Mm.
these are some things that you might be worried about. Come on over here. Let us show you how we can help you. We've got to do that.
That is, I think I love that example because we've just somehow, you and I have probably developed our careers and owned websites for a huge chunk of decades. And when we started off decades ago, it was like a brochure website, like 5 pages, 10 pages. And then we're in this world now where we're just churning out so much content.
Mhm.
Then we've need to go back to your point, exactly what you're doing. Like the whole point of a website is for somebody to come in and discover the content really quickly and then get it to action as quickly as possible. And we've created a maze with all this content. What you're doing now and helping your users just get back to basics. What language do they use to search for something? that is important to them, how do you then match that in your site search to make it as easy as possible for them to get there in as few clicks as possible? Because that's what they're there for, and you want them to leave with accurate, relevant data to help them make that choice, that life-changing choice.
Yeah. Oh,
Right?
100%. And I think one of the things that I love about now versus way back when, where we were first
Yeah.
starting to understand search engines and SEO and all the things, the habits that we've developed as humans using these tools and the increase that we see, it's exponential in use of phrases, is marketing gold. We have a partner on campus. His name is Alan Etkin. You should talk to him. He's really smart. And he's also a
Sounds
Swiss
good.
client. Yeah, he's a Swiss client at British Columbia Institute of Technology. Yeah. Alan was showing me a Looker Studio dashboard he's just built for Montana that shows us keywords and phrases.
Yes.
So we can see what people are typing and how they do it and the exact words that they know and the fancy academic words that they aren't using is as important. And what a gift. When we started doing this, there was just shooting stuff out there and hoping that the president liked it, hoping that there weren't any typos like velvet frogs. And
Yeah. But that's true, right? We end up having to please a lot of internal stakeholders, and sometimes that puts us in a tough spot between the user and the stakeholder. How do you manage that?
it sure does. It depends on the stakeholder. I think what I've had great luck with in my experience in Missoula at the University of Montana is sharing what I know about the importance of the website experience for prospective students and decision influencers like parents, teachers, guidance counselors, clergy, even like all kinds of people, aunties and uncles from extended families. Like you have to be aware and you have to teach your internal markets the enrollment funnel, the cycles, the flywheel of engagement. People who start developing an interest in their life circumstances, take them out, and how we need to have systems and tools in place to welcome them back when there's money for them to come back to school or the kids finally got into the daycare so that they can be away to go to school. It's tricky. You do also need to have a real service mentality. So even though I firmly believe that college and university websites are first and foremost student recruitment vehicles, I have to love and honor all of my users and make sure that faculty can share their work, share their scholarship, share their research so that students can find that detail and that our current students can celebrate their successes and not just athletic stuff, but the marching band doing amazing things or a club doing a wonderful service project. You have to understand a little bit about everybody and what their most important objective is, what their markets are, and what they're trying to promote. And you've got to love that as much as all the things that we know about our buyers.
Yeah, I feel that from you, which is why I think like you've landed in that perfect spot. You can feel the passion coming off of the work that you do and the people you work with and do it for. So we've talked about some kind of great successes. Part of the learning and part of the reason why we have this podcast is to share the stuff that didn't work and the stuff that you learned from. What is that for you?
Where I'm at now is a place where I'm as excited about the experiments that we try and fail because I know I'm one step closer to the thing that's going to work. But in my early career, it was hard to be vulnerable in that way. It was just unknown to me. In my early career, I was schooled that you just had to, if you were going to call yourself a consultant, if someone was going to purchase your services, you had just better be right all the time about everything. And that's just silly. And it's not true, and it's arrogant and toxic, and that's not who I am. And it wasn't the kind of consultant that I was, or the kind of employee that I am now. I feel like what I can do for the University of Montana is to set my team up with tools that allow us to be curious, to measure everything that moves, to try stuff fearlessly and say, "Oh, we're going to try it a little bit in this direction. We're going to watch it, see what happens. And if we like the way it smells, we're going to keep going on that path." And oh my gosh, this attitude I feel like has helped me build team and engagement with our entire sector, but especially my little corner of that universe. And they love it. And we love it together. We love to say, "Oh, look at this weird little piece of information over here." I have someone working for me now who's a data analyst. It's such a gift to have someone who wants to do
Dig
all
in.
the and dig in.
Yeah.
And I was looking at just a small sample of data from our CRM. I was starting to notice what I developed a hunch. I was starting to notice that student inquiries who are younger, so they might be high school freshmen right now, or sophomores, maybe juniors, the younger they are, when we ask them what they're interested in, the answer is this big. So, freshmen, and I was looking at these lists of their interests, and I was seeing things like forestry, one of our most important wildlife biologies. We're nationally at the top for this. So we'll see wildlife biology and Japanese and Native American studies and studio art. One person is saying, "You're asking me what I'm interested in. I'm interested in all of this." The younger they are, the wider their universe is. I love that because our story, our brand, what we can say is that, yeah, you can probably fit all of this together. It's going to be a little tricky in spots, but here you go. And you can kind of have all those things. Now, we do observe as they get a little bit closer to enrollment time, maybe they're getting a little anxious about choosing a major. A lot of students probably should come in undeclared, but feel pressure to have something. I certainly felt that way. I started as a business management major, and I guess that's where I've ended up. But I took a long walk around to get to that. And I think that just needs to be part of the process.
Everyone's so young trying to make that choice. And to your point, like all you can do in your team is to try to help them with as much information without overwhelming them, but helping them figure out what they need to get to. Um,
Yeah.
Respect
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
And I think the theme that I get from this broad ranging interest from these early prospects, leads that we need to nurture for 2 or 3, maybe even 4 years, 3 years before it's time for them to apply, is that we have to tell the whole story. And the whole story isn't just what your major is, it's the kind of clubs and experiences that you want to have as a student. One of the things that I love as a counterpoint to the kind of traditional, "Oh, you're probably an athlete, or maybe you love to go to football games," and you could be that, but you could also be a part of our esports community. And so that kind of blending of you can be all these things. Not all of our students are hiking up the M Trail or going camping every weekend or floating down the Clark Fork. Some of them are making art or dancing or singing or maybe doing that and hunting too. Like it's just
Variety is amazing. The diversity
the
of what you experience can be,
And
right?
it makes for storytelling, and
Mm.
just some really interesting, unexpected juxtapositions and that people
Love
are,
that.
yeah.
Love that. And I think wrapping up what you were saying there, this I can see that the learning that you had around being vulnerable to being okay with not knowing what you don't know and not faking it, because then you know even less leaving the room versus actually asking the question in the room, and how that's led into your own career now where you're in constant experimentation mode around, I don't know this, let's test it out, let's see what the data tells us, and then let's just keep iterating, because this whole idea of planning for a future that's 2 or 3 years from now in this environment, it just doesn't work anymore, does it? Things change by the moment. So it sounds as though you've really nailed down how you're actually taking University of Montana and the digital experience, the marketing experience, the brand awareness, that user experience to the next level, because we don't know what's going to happen next week. what's going to be
Mhm.
announced next week, but you found a way to make that through. Is that right?
Yeah, that feels right. And I'm hoping that you're coming to that conclusion. That's what I'm hoping to put out there. I'll say I love this work. I love this job. I love this place because I'm still learning, and I'll be vulnerable and tell you about something that I just learned that is helpful to people who do this kind of work. In our accessibility guidelines in the states, federally mandated, we have to do certain things in certain ways. And so coming up with a new brand, we ran hard at making sure that our new fonts, our new colors, our website, our new templates met federal accessibility guidelines. And we did. We beat them. We are several clicks above what those guidelines are. But here's where I'm eating some humble pie. And I'm embarrassed about this because it has to do with my family. I have three younger brothers and my father, now gone, but all of them are in one way or another dyslexic. And the fonts that we have, some of them can be problematic with people with dyslexia and potentially other neurodivergencies. And I had no idea. And I'm still looking for reliable ways to test new fonts. And in my new role, managing brand strategy and brand iteration, I have to now take our new brand and just inch it forward visually. But I have to do it really quickly. And I have to make sure that I'm only doing it hopefully once and getting it really right. But unlike the federal guidelines, there's some, but there's not a lot.
Yeah.
And I'm having to think about new methodologies. And I'm really sad that I didn't get to know this before we launched, but I know it now. And we're working real hard on it. And we're going to have a solution. We're going to be testing. We've already started pushing a few things over to our accessibility office to say, what about this? How about this? What about this? And it's just part of doing this work and not being terribly risk averse, but also having great responsibility. The
Yeah.
University of Montana is for everyone, and
Yeah.
if everyone can't use the website, then
Yeah.
we gotta.
And I think on behalf of everyone, I think thank you for sharing that because most people would have taken, if not all, your peers in in the sector would have done the same thing, right? You rely on the fact that regulations are put into place so that you can actually align with that, and they would have done
Mhm.
the heavy lifting, and
Yep.
things get missed. So I think everyone listening in who is as equally stringent about wanting their site to be accessible should listen to what Stephanie has said and go, how do I figure out how to make sure that we cover all scenarios and all people? So thank you for sharing that because no doubt that would have been a tough one. You would have worked for months, if not a year, to get that rebrand done and to have that at launch is incredibly confronting. Kudos to you for sharing that with us.
And I give kudos to the people who filled out the comment form that we put on the site. And it was very clear to me within the first week, we had an issue. People said, I'm dyslexic and I can't read this headline. And it's serif fonts. That's the primary problem. It's not the only problem. I am not an expert in this field. But what I've learned is that this font, which is ironically called Swear,
Let's let's just say that's what you did, yeah, when you found out?
you know, who
Oh,
knows?
dear. Thanks so much. Let's close this neat little conversation, which has been so great. The whole point of Squizzes Take a Closer Look podcast is that we wanna give people access to leaders in the space who have gone through some stuff in life and in their careers and have achieved a career trajectory that others want to align to, maybe take one day on their own. So, what kind of advice would you give to anyone looking to follow your career path?
Trust your gut. Ask questions. Just ask questions. People generally want to help. Yeah. So be vulnerable and be honest. And if something smells good. Keep following it. And if it doesn't go in another direction, there are so many things to explore and do. And in marketing, oh my goodness, there are so many vocations in this big umbrella to swing at. I wish that I had learned more about, like I said, library science so that I could have been a better information architect. But I ran into people who were really good at it. And so I was able to learn from them and have them do that part of this work. I think trust that there are good people around you who, if you raise a flag and say, I don't understand that word, or I don't understand this concept. Why are we doing it this way? This seems weird. Help me understand why, or help me be brave and say, this is wrong and we have to fix it. It's in higher ed in particular, I find, apart from some of the other experiences that I've had, it's an especially safe place to be yourself, to be different, to be nosy, to be passionate, to ask questions and say, what kind of bird is that? Why is that here?
Thank you so much, Stephanie. I've
It's
loved,
really my pleasure. Thank you.
and you should definitely think about that podcast career of yours as a side hustle. Appreciate your time and thanks for everything.
So much. My pleasure. Thank you all.